everybody, welcome back to another episode of Shifty's 49ers Talk. In today's video, we are going to do a preview of the Week 2 matchup, the San Francisco 49ers taking on the LA Rams. This is a historic rivalry, one in which the Niners have dominated recently. There's a lot to talk about. Let's not waste any time, guys, and let's jump right in. The 49ers and Rams is a rivalry that goes back decades, and in recent years it has been primarily dominated by the San Francisco 49ers. In the regular season at least, not the NFC Championship game. But every year, every season, there's changes in personnel. There's a dawn of a new season, and this is going to be Week 2, 49ers traveling to Levi South, otherwise known as SoFi Stadium. Before we get into the discussion on how the Niners and Rams match up against one another, let's talk about how the teams did in Week 1. So the 49ers, we all know as Niner fans, big win over the Pittsburgh Steelers on the road, 30-7. Basically pure domination for about 58 minutes of that game. Looking at the Rams though, they were able to go into Seattle, a division game on the road, Week 1. You know that Seattle crowd is loud and crazy, and they got a very impressive win. 30-13 over the Seahawks. I don't really think anyone saw that coming. If we look at the Rams in that game, Stafford throws for over 330 yards. Tutu Atwell and Puka Nacua, they both went for 119 yards. Nacua targeted 15 times in that game. Looking at their running game, though, the running game really struggled. Yes, they scored 3 touchdowns, which is great, but they also ran the ball 40 times for only 92 yards. Really not efficient running of the ball. But what I really take away from the game, from the Rams and the Seahawks, is their defense was solid. They didn't force any turnovers, but they also didn't give away any turnovers. But they were just, the game plan was executed, I think, near perfectly by Sean McVay. They did time of possession. They weren't sacked at all, so the team was constantly in good situations. And that's really demonstrated by, if you look at their third down efficiency, 11 of 17. If you include going for it on fourth down, they were 12 for 18 in total. 66% completion on third and fourth down is really, really good in the NFL. So this Rams team's they should not be overlooked. Potentially the Seahawks did that. They're thinking Week 1, are the Rams tanking? This will be an easy win. We'll start 1-0. And they got hit in the mouth. They lost big, 30-13 at home. And now Seattle goes on to a tough game in Detroit. But there we go. So in Week 1, both of these teams coming off big wins on the road. But let's now get into some of the key matchups and some of the key players in the game. Week 2, Niners against the Rams. For the LA Rams, to me, there are 3 key players on that team that I'm definitely going to be keeping my eyes on throughout the game. 2 on offense, 1 on defense. Now, the 2 guys on offense, they're both going to be receivers. One's a wide receiver, one's a tight end. The receiver, Puka Nacua. This guy, rookie, kind of came out of nowhere, targeted 15 times, had 119 yards. Stafford not afraid to throw him the ball, also Tutu Atwell, but not afraid to throw those guys the ball down the field. Puka Nacua is someone that we're going to have to keep an eye on. Mooney Ward, Deommodore Lenoir, potentially Ambry Thomas, and those guys going to have to be disciplined, because here's the thing with the Rams offense, not afraid to take shots down the field. As far as they see it, they're like, look, it's either going to be incomplete, it's going to be a catch, or it's going to be a pass interference or a defensive penalty, which is kind of the case a lot of the times in today's modern NFL. So it's not a bad strategy, I think. So Puka Nacua is someone to absolutely keep an eye on throughout this game. Now, the other player, the tight end, is going to be Tyler Higbee. Tyler Higbee went for about 49 yards Week 1. Not amazing, but also not bad at all. But he's a guy who I feel like tends to just have his best games against the 49ers, almost always seems to find his way into the end zone whenever we play each other. Not really backing that up by stats necessarily, but it just feels like he always plays well against the Niners. And that's something, just another thing to keep an eye on. Stafford, we know, not afraid to sling the ball. Now if we move on to the defensive side, and there's clearly one guy we have to talk about, who is the key player. Everyone knows him, Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald is a guy who has, I wouldn't say struggled against the 49ers, but hasn't maybe had his best games against the 49ers in recent years. However, we know he can just dominate. He can absolutely take over a game plan. He can change what offenses have to do, and he is just an absolute menace. Had a half a sack in week 1 against Seattle, and expect him to be incredibly disruptive. Expect him to be used on a bunch of stunts, all those kind of things. They're going to throw a lot of different looks at the 49ers offensive line, especially the right side of the 49ers offensive line. Spencer Burford, Colt McKivitz, these guys have to come to play because the Rams are going to try and do to the 49ers what they did to Seattle. Control time of possession. Don't get sacks, limit your penalties, and basically just constantly put yourself in good situations. The Niners, we have to disrupt that. We have to get sacks on Stafford. We have to try and neutralize Aaron Donald, and we've done a fairly good job of that recently. That has to continue for the 49ers to get a big win against the LA Rams. Looking at the matchups in this game, let's start off with the 49ers defense against the LA Rams offense. Now, I think the 49ers defense, with regards to pass defense, needs to do everything that Seattle didn't do. Seattle didn't have any sacks. They didn't have any interceptions. They didn't have any turnovers. So if the Niners can basically flip that, and what you want to do is focus on the defensive line. Drake Jackson, big game against Pittsburgh. Nick Bosa, we all know about him. Javon Hargrave, Armstead, Farrell, Kinlaw, all of these guys, if they can have a big-time game against the Rams, we know that Matthew Stafford, under pressure, not afraid to take risks. Even when he's not under pressure, he is not afraid to throw the ball down the field. We saw him do that against Seattle. But if we can get that pressure, throw it before he wants to, he is prone to making mistakes. We've seen the Niners intercept Stafford over the last few years a number of times, and that trend needs to continue. But not only that, if you can get sacks on Stafford, put the Rams offense into difficult situations, that's another thing that Seattle didn't do. They didn't have any sacks against the LA Rams in week 1. So that's what the 49ers need to do up front. Now on the back end, the defensive backs, to me, it's just playing sound, disciplined, fundamental football. Rams, again, not afraid to take shots down the field, so you got to be disciplined. You can't give away those pass interference, those defensive holding calls, those kind of things. Defensive holding is one thing, but you can't give away those, 40 yards down the field pass interference. Give the Rams confidence, get their offense down the field. You don't want that to happen. So Mooney Ward, Lenore, Hufanga, Gibson, just being disciplined, sticking with the game plan, and I think the Niners should be fine. Also, very quickly, when you look at the Niners, the run defense, now if they can kind of match what Seattle did, that would be pretty good. I know the Rams had 3 rushing touchdowns, but if you look at the overall game, they had 40 rushes for about 90 yards, which is not good at all. If we can limit them what they can do in the run game, get some pressure, I really think this defense could have a relatively similar performance as they did against Pittsburgh. Although holding teams to 7 points in the NFL, especially when you're on the road, not an easy thing to do. Let's now move on to the 49ers offense up against the LA Rams defense. And to me, the one concern I really have going into this game is going to be the right side of the offensive line. Spencer Burford last year had a couple of really bad plays against Aaron Donald. Of course, Donald is going to try and exploit that again, but also Colton McKivitz. Look, he had a really tough matchup in week 1 against TJ Watt on the road in Pittsburgh. The Rams don't have anyone of that quality on the edge, at least, unless you see Aaron Donald maybe kick out there someone, but you know they're going to focus on the right side of the offensive line. We need Spencer Burford and Colton McKivitz to have a better game. I'm not saying they need to be absolutely locked down, to have a complete shutout or anything, but just to be a little bit better would be ideal for the 49ers. Burford had 2 penalties last week. McKivitz, 3 sacks allowed against TJ Watt. They've got to be better there. Also, just give Brock Purdy time. Now, when we look at the weapons for the 49ers, week 1, we saw Christian McCaffrey and Brandon Ayuk. They went off. They went crazy. I think this week, it's going to be a little bit more of Deebo Samuel and George Kittle. I think those will be the 2 guys who have big games against the Rams defense. Now, of course, Ayuk is going to get his catches, going to get some yards, no doubt about that. McCaffrey's going to get his carries. He'll also get some catches, no doubt about that. But I think in terms of who has the big game, like we saw McCaffrey and Ayuk had last week. I think this week it's going to be Deebo Samuel, it's going to be George Kittle. Get the ball in the hands of those guys. We know how good they are after the catch, how physical they are. I think you grind down this Rams defense and we're going to see a lot of success moving forward. Now, the last key, what we have to talk about, it's going to be Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy looked really good week one, looked in command of the offense, looked confident, looked mobile, arm strength looked more than enough. Just keep that going, basically. We know, and I think the left side of this offensive line is one of the best in the NFL. The right side, we know it's a question mark, but Brock Purdy, if he gets, that decent protection, use his mobility, that's going to be really big for the 49ers. And basically just let's put ourselves in good situations. I want to see also Elijah Mitchell, Jordan Mason. Let's get them the ball a little bit more. Take some of the weight, off of Christian McCaffrey's shoulders. We have some other really good running backs. Give them a go. Give them a run out there. I think Mitchell, Mason could be in for a bigger workload this weekend compared to what we saw week one against the Pittsburgh Steelers. But overall, I do like the 49ers to be able to move the ball a little bit better. However, let's think, the Rams, they held Seattle to 13 points, and Seattle have a pretty explosive offense. They have a bunch of weapons, so the Niners cannot go into this game underestimating the LA Rams, which again is what I think Seattle did week one. But I do have faith in Kyle Shanahan, and I do have faith in Purdy and all the weapons to be able to move the ball with some effectiveness, and I think we will put up a good amount of points in this game. Finally, let's talk about special teams. And from Jake Moody, essentially, I just want to see more of the same. I wonder if Moody might start getting some kickoff duties. We'll see. We'll see how he's feeling with him. He's coming off a bit of an injury. But Jake Moody, obviously perfect 5 for 5 week one in all of his field goals and extra points. So that's a really good sign. Wishnowsky, I thought, was pretty solid punting the ball, even though we didn't have to do it that many times, but let's just keep that going. The big thing for me is looking at the kick return coverage and the punt return coverage. The kick return coverage for the Niners, not so great week one. The Steelers averaged over 30 yards per kick return. Now in week one, the LA Rams did struggle in their return game, but the Niners need to stay disciplined, need to improve there to basically the mantra of this game needs to be put the Rams in bad situations. If you give up a big return, a 30, 40-yard return, suddenly they're in great field position. We can't do that. Force the Rams to have to make the difficult plays, and I think this game should work in the 49ers' favor. I also like to see Ray McCloud maybe get a few more opportunities to return the ball. That would be a big thing as well for the 49ers whenever you're on the road, if you can get those big plays yourself on special teams and basically just try and play mistake-free ball. I think if we can get some solid returns out of Ray, no turnovers, that would be really big for the 49ers in this matchup. Alrighty guys, so there you have it for my key players and my key matchups. And now is the time that I'm going to give you my score prediction. 49ers week 2 in LA, in Levi South. I have the 49ers winning this game, and I think it's going to be by the score of 27-20. 49ers over the Rams and moving on to 2-0 on the year. So I absolutely want to hear your guys' predictions for scores for this game, your guys' thoughts on this game, anything that I maybe didn't cover in this preview. What are you guys going to be looking at in this big week 2 matchup, NFC West rivalry? Hopefully the 49ers can continue the dominance over the LA Rams, and then you're moving into a quick turnaround Thursday night against the New York Giants. I will be streaming this game live on YouTube. I'll be going live about 30 minutes before kickoff, potentially doing another game, one of the early games, which would, that would alter that plan a little bit. But I will absolutely be streaming the Niners and Rams game Sunday, and I hope you guys will join me there. Before I head out, I want to say a couple of things. Thank you to all the support on the previous stream and all the videos. Really, it just means a lot, and it's incredibly humbling, so thank you so much there. If you enjoy the videos, drop a like on the video. Feel free to share on social media. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because that really does help out the channel tremendously. So thank you again for all of your guys' support. Before I head out of here, I'm going to say 2 things. The butt counts, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side.